Hi, my name is Mary Beth Bredinger, and I am the Secretary for the American with Disabilities ADA Council for the City of Spencer. We are a caring group of individuals who meet once a month to improve the lives of those with disabilities. Most people already have or will have some kind of disability in their lifetime. It isn't always something you can see or hear. Some disabilities are mild and some are severe. Some are physical and some are mental. Some people are born with their disability and others are a result of an injury or accident. Today I'm going to introduce you to one of our ADA members, my friend Denny Johnson, who is going to answer some questions for you about his disability. Thank you, Denny, for being here. Your disability was from a diving accident.
Correct.
How old were you when it happened, and can you tell us a little bit about what occurred?
See, I was 22, and we were canoeing on the river, and we'd stopped and had lunch and just had been swimming in this certain area, and I just happened to dive in at the wrong time, and I hit something and broke my neck, my 6th and 7th clavicle vertebrae, and that was way back before cell phones, so it took a long time for to get down the river to a place to where we could get the ambulance, and they took me to Sioux City, and I was in Sioux City for almost 10 months, and I had they call a halo vest. It's when a metal ring went around your head it stretches your neck out to let the vertebrae heal, and yeah, that was quite a deal back, being 22 and going from walking and doing all the things I did to not doing all that stuff. So it affected my legs and some of my hand movement. It affected that, and that's basically the main things that it did. But kind of cut out my canoeing and my motorcycle riding and all the other activities like that I did. So you got to be so careful when you're swimming like that, because you never know how deep it is or if there's anything underneath the water when you dive in, so they always, feet first. It's recommended feet first when you can't see or if you haven't been there before, and just main safety things, it doesn't take any longer to just walk in there and see what's there than it does just to straight off dive in and end up with a situation like mine. My family's been a big support, and some of my friends that I had back then, some of them I still have and some of them I don't, some stuck with me, and of course, you get older and everybody goes their own ways and everything, but yeah, the first couple years it was, you have a group of your friends, and then all of a sudden get less and less and less. So yeah, it was kind of tough that way, but I mean, you go on.
I see you have gloves with you. Do you use those
I wear
all the time when you're?
A lot of the time, especially when I'm outside and stuff, your feet getting dirty, your hands get dirty from pushing on your wheels, and then they're a little tough on your fingers, they little scrape and cuts here and there. Besides, it keeps my hands clean, so yeah, I go through about 2 pair of gloves a year. Put new tires on. The back ones now have air in them, and yeah, I have to fill them up with air every so often and put new tires on them, because it's like a bicycle or car, the tread wears out.
Yep.
And one year, our ADA group was in the Flag Fest parade, and we were on a pontoon going down Grand, and one of my front tires popped and blew up. I don't know if Rosie remembers that or not, but yeah, we were just going down Grand and sitting there on that pontoon, and it went boom, and sounded like a gun going off. I have a van that I drive. It's got hand controls that are underneath the steering wheel. And I don't know if you see like the transit buses and the school buses that have the lift that come out the side. I have one of them. And get on that, get in the van, and transfer from my chair to the driver's seat and take off, and that's how I drive. So, besides my wheelchair, I have a little scooter that I ride on. I used to go out on the trail in my chair, but a shoulder injury a couple years ago slowed me down doing that, It's like using your arms for something that your legs were supposed to be doing,
Right.
and it wears on your shoulders a little bit more, so, but yeah. And then with the scooter, I can get around a lot faster and see more stuff.
Right.
The first chair I had when I got hurt weighed 75 pounds. This one weighs 22. So it made a lot of difference in the amount of pushing around you could do. I use a sliding board. You can put it underneath your leg and just kind of slide across to something. And if I don't have it, I can just, just lift yourself across. I have a little tool that I don't have a lot of button-up shirts, but you stick it through the buttonhole and grab the button and pull it back through, let's see, some cooking utensils that are designed a little bit different that I don't use very often, because I'm a terrible cook. But they make little gadgets, I would call them, to help you out here and there. And cabinets, the main cabinets are lower for the countertops, and the sink has a cutout under it so I can roll underneath it. And on the bottom of the cabinets, they have a taller cutout so I can get my feet underneath them. And let's see, the stove is a little shorter. I got I don't know, I guess they call it a reacher, a grabber, one of them that you can squeeze and grab something, or I have a stick that's about 4 foot long that I got a coat hook on one end and just a little stopper on the other, that can reach out and, grab something or push it or snag it and get it, and it takes longer, it's not as easy. Get your shoes on or change your jeans or whatever, You can't just stand up and pull them right up. To reach something, I can't reach it up high, and definitely helps when somebody says, may I help you do something, or do you need help with this, or, and if I do, it's great, but, and if I don't, I say, no thanks, I got her, but thanks anyway, The weather is challenging. When it's cold, my lift doesn't work as good because it's hydraulic oil, and when it's cold, it really slows down. And you got to plan ahead a little more. Somebody says, hey, let's go do something. Well, can we get in that place first?
Right.
And what's going on with the weather? Or, there's a lot of places that are accessible. And then, there's still a few that aren't really, but they're getting fewer and fewer all the time. So somebody's going to get a disability in their lifetime as you get older. Don't be afraid to look for help out there. There's a lot of different places that'll, help you figure this out or that out, or, if you need help maybe building accessible bathroom or design of a wheelchair ramp or something onto your house, something like that, or a vehicle that's handicap accessible. There's a lot more of that available nowadays than there used to be. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that he can tap into that will help you. So, and don't be afraid to do it, because that's what it's there for.
I am going to introduce you to one of our ADA members, Shannon Zinkovic, who is going to join us via Zoom.
I'm Shannon Zinkovich. I am a mother of two, a widow, and I am a new grandmother. I have congenital hip dysplasia, and that just means that my hip sockets weren't quite right when I was born, and we didn't realize it until I was in kindergarten, and had several surgeries, 7 body casts, a home tutor to keep me up with my classmates. And I still managed to play basketball in junior high, and, almost did pretty much everything that everyone else could. I've had a lift on my shoe since junior high. And now I am walking with crutches because I have one artificial hip and one hip that still needs to be operated on. My parents especially took such great care of me. Those 7 body casts that I had, I would be sent home from the hospital in Rochester and be in the cast for 6 weeks, and then they would take me back and see where we went from there. And when I was at Rochester, or I did go to Minneapolis to the Shriners Hospital later on, but while I was in Rochester, my mother would stay up there and my father would come back home. I have a leg length difference, which means that I have a lift on my shoe. So say the typical sole on a shoe would be this high. Well, my shorter leg, the sole will be this high. So that's hard on your back, and it's hard on all of your joints. And of course, being on crutches, it's hard on your arms too. So you tend to get a little achy and stiff, but it's not bad. And as far as cars go, I usually have to ask my friends or my family if either I can drive with my car or which car they're going to take, because some passenger cars, you take it for granted just getting into any old car, and it's not easy for me. I've got to have running boards so I can kind of finagle my way up into the seat, and then because I can't, my legs don't have the range of motion or the strength to just pull myself up in normally sideways. So I go in backwards, and then I need to have my seat all the way up and all the way back. The snow, it doesn't bother me. It's the ice, because the ice is so slippery, and if I fall, it's not just going to be something where I just bounce right back up. It could mean some serious ramifications for me. I do have, and I can show you, I have my crutch right here, and I have these ice attachments, and they just flip down, and they're like cleats. So I put those down when I go outside to walk on the ice, but I really try to avoid walking on the ice if at all possible. My classmates we're so used to it since it started when I was in kindergarten. And the way we found it was, I don't know if they still do it now. Like I said, my kids are grown, but when we were little, kindergartners, then the school nurse would do scoliosis checks. And like I said, when your hips are off, it makes your spine off too. And she thought I had scoliosis at first. And what it was my hip problem. And that's what got the ball rolling as far as going to the doctor and seeing what was wrong. But I was bullied in junior high, but it had nothing to do with, because in junior high, I didn't really have that many surgeries at that time. So, but yeah, I had my first surgery when I was 6 years old, my last one when I was 16, and I kept seeing Shriners until I was 21. When people see somebody with a disability, you can just see in their eyes that they're trying to figure out what the story is. And also, they don't know how to handle it, as far as they don't want to offend anybody, but they don't want to leave them out either. So I tend to crack jokes. Um, and after my hip replacement, I did work my way at that time up to walking a little over a mile. And I hadn't been able to do that for years. And I think sometimes people are surprised to see me do that with my crutches. But I figure I can do almost anything that I want to. I just need to do it in a different way. Playing with my grandson and spending time with my family, gardening for sure. It's so peaceful and stress-free, and it's just a good way to get some little bit of exercise and some fresh air. And just typical things: music, reading. I'm in college, so I spend some time doing my studies too. So my most recent job was, I was a medical transcriptionist for 16 years. I worked at a durable medical equipment company. I've worked at a hospital. I tend to gravitate, I suppose, towards the medical realm for whatever reason. I don't plan it that way. I've worked at a construction company as a secretary. So and I was a preschool teacher for 4 years too. So just ask them politely. That's all you have to do. That would be much better than for somebody to stare at someone, because if you think about it, would you like anyone to stare at you? You're wondering what they're thinking, and my gosh, do I look okay, or what's what's wrong? And it just makes a person feel uncomfortable. So I have seen the best side of humanity. When I would go to the store, especially in the wintertime, if I was pushing a cart or anything, people would always ask me if I needed any help or anything. And once in a while I'd take them up on it, but I pretty much had a system. And so I'm like, no, thanks, but it was nice of you to ask. It's always nice for somebody to offer to help. So yeah, that I will never look down on anyone or be angry with anyone for asking if they could help me. I think it teaches you to be patient with yourself, which I'm not always the best at. I get frustrated, and it's not with anyone else. I get frustrated with myself. Just to, like I said, have a good sense of humor, because that will help if you're hurting or if you're scared, or anytime when you're growing up. just to, and don't expect the worst out of people either. For instance, I talked about the lift on my shoe. I had a lift on my basketball shoes, and one of my classmates, we were in the locker room, and she said, "Shannon, I'm so sorry. I don't mean anything mean by this, but your shoe reminds me of Herman Munster." And I don't know if the fourth graders watch the Munsters anymore, but I had never thought of it that way. And I got to looking at my shoe and I'm like, you're right. And we had a good laugh about it. So, it's just, you might as well laugh about things, because the only thing you can control in this life is how you react to whatever's going on. You can't change anything else. So, and I pray a lot too. So you've got to have a higher power and you've got to have a support system. Everybody has some sort of a struggle. And the people who are handicapped, they still like all the same things that everyone else does, in general. Like I said, they just have to do things in a different way and be patient, because it may take them a little bit longer to do it. And that's for their safety too. So, but otherwise, don't be afraid to ask questions. So there's no dumb questions.
I'm going to introduce you to one of our ADA council members, Erickson, who is with me. You will learn that he is more like you than he is different. Were you born with your disability?
Yes, I was born with my disability. I have a younger brother that's totally normal, does not have a disability, and most moms and dads run a little small risk of having a child with a disability, kind of that 3%. So I caught it, that 3%. I've got 4 fingers on one hand and 4 fingers on the other hand, so missing a couple of bones out of both arms. And I was born with a hole in my heart, born with my eyes crossed, so I was kind of legally blind, and then missing some bones in my ears, so I wasn't able to hear as well. And then within the last 5 years, I went to a place called Bone and Joint and had my left shoulder looked at, and it is actually permanently dislocated. And so I think perhaps I probably was born with a left dislocated shoulder. I am a social worker, and I work for Sanford Health in Sheldon, Iowa. I'm a hospice social worker, so I work with terminally ill patients that are, trying to think here, we've got one actually as young as 25 and all the way up to 101. So kind of walk that journey with them on the last 6 months of their life, and try to keep them as comfortable and as pain-free, and hopefully achieve any last minute kind of goals or milestones that they want to achieve. Well, with my physical disability, there unfortunately are a lot of jobs that I'm not physically able to do, that I'm not going to be able to do as productively as one might hope. But with at least a social work job, I physically can do it and emotionally and mentally can do it. And I'm hopefully a pretty strong communicator, and I like to sit and visit, and I like to listen. In my disability, I do well with computers, and of course the cell phone is a wonderful little piece of technology, and typing on the keyboard I still do pretty well. They have a natural dragging speaking software out there, so computers and databases I do still pretty well with. So yeah, and the paperwork is fairly manageable with my disability and my writing skills and typing skills. I'm very blessed to have a very loving brother that would help me anytime I needed. He was always there for me. I feel kind of bad. It was almost a role reversal. He almost was the big brother and I was the little brother. But he was there to help and provide support, and I helped him and provided support when he needed help. So worked together hand in hand. In 3rd and 4th grade, very much teased and made fun of, and that was definitely not a fun concept. Very blessed to have a loving mother and father who provided me support and to emotionally get me through some of those traumatic teasings that I got. And I, to this day, you know, as a young man being 52, 53, I still can point out and remember those kids that very much teased me. So my dad has created adaptive tools along the way for me to be more independent and to do more things and whatnot. And ironically enough, I actually use my feet for quite a few things. If you ever see me out golfing, you might see that I'm barefoot, and might think that's kind of strange for an old man to be barefoot on a golf course, but I use my feet for a lot of things. And so yeah, I like to pick things up with my feet. And ironically enough, this is going to sound silly, but I always have to laugh when I see people bend over to take their socks off. And it's like, well, you got 2 perfectly good toes, why aren't you using them to take your socks off? So, well, our society is very much a right-handed society, and I'm kind of left-handed, predominantly left-handed, but I do use my right hand a little bit as well. So I bought a couple of different things, like, you know, when you go to purchase a pair of mittens or gloves, with only having 4 fingers, I've got a mitten, and then I just had the thumb kind of cut off it. So I've got 2 mittens here, both were cut there, and then putting on a stocking cap with my arms being a little short and being able to reach, just having these little deals here help pull the cap down is helpful. And then I've got a shirt here as well with the sleeves that are kind of cut on it. So when you go to buy a brand new shirt, you know, get excited, bring it home, you want to put it on. But I've had to have somebody sew and make the sleeves a little shorter for me. And then getting dressed in the morning, because I said, you know, I'm missing the thumb, so I have a little, what we call a little zip hook that helps pull the zipper up so I can get my pants on. And then I have a button hook that will go in with a pair of blue jeans. You kind of go through the little hole, the loop, and grab the button, and then you pull it back. This stick here has a kind of a hook on the end of it. And that kind of helps to pull my socks up or pull my pants up with the belt loops. And then I'm wearing a shirt today, but you can see there's some button hooks, buttons up above. And I use this little button hook to fasten that button as well. So those are some of the things I use to get dressed in the morning. And you know, when you think about getting up and just doing your thing, it might take me an extra 15 or 20 minutes to be able to get dressed. So I gotta get up a little earlier and be a little more prepared. You talked about challenges, just simply reaching, getting into cupboards and just being able to reach and needing step stools. And you know, you go grocery shopping, it's not fun to go grocery shopping because I see things that I can't reach, and having to ask for help, you know, can be kind of challenging. I don't like to ask for help. I like to be independent, but as you get older, you need to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I went out and bought at least 4 different step stools so I can reach what I need to reach, because there's constantly with things up, paper towels or Kleenexes or laundry soap, or, you know, this is going to sound silly, but to even just hang my clothes, I'm a little short, so to have a step stool so I can reach to put the hanger on the rack there can be challenging. So just having all those step stools. A lot of my top shelves are pretty much empty. When I can't reach, I don't put the stuff in there. And the older I get, it's not as safe to be climbing up step ladders and step stools. So I drove here. I still ride horses. I can still drive a motorcycle. I can still snow ski and fly a kite, and even play basketball and football. And I love to golf. I did a lot of golfing last year. I just kind of physically adapt to, like, when I ride a motorcycle, I might sit a little closer than I should, and some people might think I'm going to do a head dive over the front wheel. But even like a recumbent bike I purchased, which allows you to sit and my head's up and I can steer a lot better. Snow skiing was really pretty easy. I'm pretty strong with my legs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with tow ropes, where you grab an actual rope that pulls you up. I had to learn how to really grasp that. I don't know if you've ever been out snow skiing, but when your gloves, in about an hour, your gloves can get pretty wet and they don't seem to hold the tow rope as well. But there's tricks of the trade to learn to really grasp and hold that. So yeah, I like to snow ski, and I enjoy fishing. That's another thing I enjoy doing. Golfing's probably my number one thing I really enjoy doing. I think just being understanding, being patient, just taking the time to get to know somebody, ask questions, and just being kind and friendly and nice and supportive and understanding more than anything. And to know that it's okay to be different. You know, I might be somebody who you don't run across very often. There aren't a ton of people with my disabilities. In my lifetime, I think I've only met probably less than 20 probably. I'll bet I was probably 21 before I finally met the first person that had a disability like mine. So I am different. I think it's okay to come up and ask questions. You know, I'm something different, and I would encourage you, you know, want you to learn and grow, and you know, the more questions you ask, the more answers you can get. You need to really be positive, kids. I know this world's a little challenging in this day and age, but to really try to be positive, to see the goodness in the world, and to be a friend. I can't encourage that enough, to be a friend, and to be a friend with somebody that might have some challenges and what the rewards might be. And just being a good neighbor, being a good person, but just being positive, trying to make sure you're doing the right thing, live life to the fullest. If you don't succeed the first time, definitely encourage you to do it the second time. You know, I guess I would really try to give you young kids a real message that just because we're different doesn't mean we don't want to be normal. And I would encourage you to take the advantage, and I would challenge you, I guess, to make a friend. You might be surprised what that other individual might have to share the gift and can teach you, and would challenge you to make a friend and get to know somebody and make a difference in their lives, and gives you an opportunity to grow and get to know somebody.
Today, I'm going to introduce you to one of our friends, Molly Giddings, via Zoom.
I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor, so I help individuals with disabilities with employment. So I help them find jobs. And when I was born with a disability called spina bifida. And so that disability affected the way that I use my legs. So my walking and my balance, all of that is what that affects. I have to say that I'm really lucky to have the supports that I have. I have really great parents that always made things work. So if I needed to go to a friend's house or, go to college, all those things, they were always there to help me through that process. I'm pretty independent, and I owe that a lot to my mom and dad, because they made me do it. So it was expected, and there's no excuses, and you get to do it. So my friends, I have amazing friends. I have lots of friends. Everybody will say that everywhere we go, everybody's like, "Oh, Molly, you know Molly." And so I think that helps out with my job. And now my husband, he's 6'4", 300 pounds. So he can carry me wherever I need to go, really, and help me upstairs, those types of things. We adopted 3 kiddos through DHS, and they're 13. Aiden is 13, and Ariana is 11, and Nora is 6. So, there's different things that they've had to kind of learn about having a mom in a wheelchair, and so I think it's been good for them to understand those things as well. So the challenges, probably the biggest thing is because I use a wheelchair, is being able to maybe get into certain places like people's houses, and maybe certain offices sometimes, like for my work, maybe aren't completely accessible, or the snow really is not very much fun. In high school, I didn't use my wheelchair all the time. I would walk. And so not all the time, like bathrooms and stuff weren't always accessible for me, or to to different high schools. Like you would go to different high schools, and so you'd have to figure out where the accessibility would be. So I guess that was probably my biggest challenges, is just making sure that everything's accessible for me to get around, and maybe not being able to do like everything my friends would do. like being in sports and, that type of thing, especially when you grow up in a small town. That's kind of what there is to offer. And so instead, I would do like being a manager. And so that's how I stayed involved in things. We would figure it out. For marching band, I did, somebody would push me in my wheelchair so then I could participate. So yeah, so there's lots of things that you just kind of you have to think of different ways to do things. So, and that's kind of what we did. People are surprised that I drive. That's a big one. Or that I'm a mom. That's another big one. I have a really cool car. So that's probably another obstacle, I guess people could say. It costs a little bit more for me to drive than probably a typical person. I have hand controls in my car. And so so all the levers are attached to my gas pedal and my brake. And so you push in for brake and down for gas. And so when I was learning how to drive, when I was 16, 14 in there, I forgot which one was which. And so, yeah, luckily I lived on a farm. So I used to have a van, and I'm sure you guys have all probably seen a van open up and the ramp comes down. Well, the Suburban that we got, actually the whole side of the driver's side, the driver and the passenger behind me, it comes up, and then this little ramp thing comes down, and then I hook on, and then I go back up. So the Suburban works really a lot better in bad weather and stuff. So that's kind of why we went that route. Way back in the day, I was a part of my track team in high school. And so I got to have a special not motorized. I wish it would have been motorized. I would have won more. No, I got to have a special racing wheelchair is what they call them. And so it has like 3 wheels on it, and then I would sit kind of like in a little ball, and then I would race. I would go to like state track, like down in Drake at the Drake Stadium, and then I got to go to New Jersey and California, and got to race against people from all over the United States. So it was a pretty cool. My community was really awesome and helpful because, I didn't come from a family that had lots of money and, like we could just go everywhere we wanted. So my community really made it possible for me to get to do all of those things and go to all those places. So lucky enough, I married a construction worker. So he's able to do a lot of those things at our house for us. I have an extra low countertop. Our stove doesn't have a drawer on it like most stoves do, like for your pots and pans and all that kind of stuff. And so we don't have that. So it's extra low. And then my husband, since he's tall, he gets one countertop to himself. And then my washer and dryer, they open to the front, so I don't have to like dig in. Let's see what else. We have a ramp that gets into our house. Our bathroom, it has a shower, just has a shower. There's no bathtub, and it actually came that way. So it worked out pretty well. And then there's just a seat in the bathroom. My wheelchair does take air in it, just like a bike tire. So I order off of Amazon, or I have this other wheelchair site that I can order materials off. So if you run over a thumbtack, it really is not a good day. So I tend not to have thumbtacks running around where I work. I can get a new wheelchair every 5 years. And so I go up to St. Paul, Minnesota, and they take care of all of that for me. So they measure me, and yep. And so when it comes, that's why they have to order it and everything. And then when it comes, and I get to try it out. And I mean, it's really light. It's only about 22 pounds, I think. My wheelchair is. And then my seat that I sit on, because you have to make sure you don't get sores on your tuchus. And so I have a seat that has air in it, so it actually pumps just like my wheelchair tires do. So I've lost a couple seats because they've popped. And so I go to the doctors in Rochester about every year so that I'm staying healthy and like my kidneys are good. That's what they kind of check. And so I have to do that once a year, which is fine, and everything's usually healthy. Now, when I was little, I would have lots more surgeries, like on my feet and my back and those types of things. And so that's probably, as I've gotten older, knock on wood, that there hasn't been as many like medical needs. So I've always liked talking. I don't know if everybody's noticed that, but I've always been able to communicate with people. And so I knew I wanted a job that was going to help others and take care of people. And I've had lots of really good role models along the way to do that. And a role model can be anybody. Mine were my parents and my school nurse. She was really awesome at getting me involved, especially for the track stuff. The administrator of the local nursing home, her son and I were in the same class. And so she kind of helped me get my first job with the nursing home. And so I took the CNA class to be a nursing assistant. And so then I was hired on to help with like feeding the residents and handing out their snacks and their nightgowns at night. And so, that taught me a lot about the elderly. And that's kind of what I really thought I was going to be doing, was working with them. I'm not. And so now I work with high school students that have disabilities. And then I worked at a pizza place in Armstrong as well. And so there I was able to communicate and, practice customer service and all of that. So I think I just knew that I was going to do something with people. So ask before you try to help. Like in the grocery store, like the top shelf, like I can't really reach. And so I usually hope that there's somebody in the aisle there with me if I'm by myself. But it's really, really, really important to ask first, because you wouldn't want to hurt the person. And I know it wouldn't be intentional to do that, but you kind of, when you have a physical disability, you got it down. You have a routine and you kind of know what to do. So like if somebody, like you can offer to open the door, that's okay. Those types of things. And nice ways to ask, like people will ask me sometimes, what's wrong with you? That's probably not the best way to ask that. You could say, why are you in a wheelchair? That would probably be the best way to, I've had my disability all my life. So there's nothing new. There's nothing new to that. But some people might not. And so they could be a little bit more sensitive than I would to that question. Remember when you're parking, that you don't park in the handicap stalls, and the extra space where there's lines, you don't park there, because that's so that I can get out of my car or somebody else can get out of my car. And probably my other biggest pet peeve is when I go into a bathroom and there's 7 stalls available and the person is in the handicap one that doesn't need it. So those are, because I need to go to the handicap stall and that's the only one that I can go to, but the other person could have went to like the other one. So just remember that when you go to the bathroom the next time. I can only really remember one time of somebody actually like making fun of me to my face, or else. And then on the flip side, people will probably say that they don't even see my wheelchair. Like they don't even know that, they kind of forget that Molly's in a wheelchair. One of the things is I don't let it bother me, because I was born this way and this is how it's going to go. And so if you have any disability, like ADHD, autism, a learning disability, anything like that, is that's how you were made. And there's ways to figure out how to be successful and be happy and not let those things get in your way. But going back to the bully question, the sad thing is that I'm 38 years old and I still remember the day that happened. And so as young, adults or students, you guys need to really remember on what you say can be very hurtful to somebody, and for somebody to actually, it sticks with them like their whole life. So, but, and the other part of, I think, about maybe being bullied or people just don't understand either. You know, it's your job, it's my job to educate people on disabilities and how it's okay. And that's just how life is, and you keep going. So
Today I'm going to introduce you to one of our ADA members, Rosie Osterberg, and ask her a few questions. And be sure to listen, and you'll find that she is more like you than not like you. So Rosie, can you tell us how old you were when you lost your eyesight and what happened,
Okay.
what caused you to lose it?
It's kind of like a two-part question because I lost my sight in both my eyes, but at a different age. So I was probably 5 or 6 when I went to the DBS program, and we had gone outside that morning for recess. And we were either playing a couple of games. I don't know if anyone besides me, or maybe a few older ones, would remember about drop the handkerchief or ring around the rosy. I'm not sure which one of the two we were playing, but during the process, a little boy accidentally hit me in the left eye with his elbow. Well, I think my folks waited a few days before they took me to Dr. Eddington here in Spencer. And he sent me to an eye specialist clear up in Niles, Michigan. He felt that he could help me. But so he gave my mom some eye drops to put in my eye. By the time the kindergarten year ended, I had lost the sight in that left eye. And what had actually happened was he told my mother that whatever hit it ruptured the pupil, the black part of your eye. I learned to live without the use of that eye all through grade school, and I went all the way through high school, which is the one eye, but my other eye, my right one, I lost in 1989. I was 47 years old, had 4 children, a husband, and was very active in church and in the community. And I was driving down Grand Avenue there by the former Super Value store. Well, all of a sudden I saw 3 lights, not 1 light, 3 light poles. And I knew that wasn't normal. So I went to a doctor, eye doctor here in Spencer, and he had me do eye drops. He put steroid eye drops in my eyes. All of a sudden one day when I was there at my desk, it was all black. I couldn't see a thing for almost, I would say, 30 seconds to a minute. Well, this kept going on for almost a week. Well, come to find out, what the steroids had done was they had caused medicine-induced glaucoma. From then on, that eye just got continually worse. And in 1997, I had developed a cataract. Well, Dr. Bobble said, Rosamay, he said, if you go to Rochester, he said, they will take care of the cataract and also the glaucoma surgery. Well, unfortunately, when I left Rochester after the cataract surgery, I could not see to read at all. That was the last time I read before I went there. My teachers at Lincoln School would not let me play baseball. They would not, or softball. They wouldn't let me play basketball. The kids were always afraid of me. They seemed to back off from being friendly because my eye looked so bad. You know, because the black was broke, and so it just did not have any, it didn't look like an eye, you know. And so they, in high school, it continued. Miss Dowell, the PE teacher, would not let me play basketball, which I wanted to do so badly. And she wouldn't let me do softball. She kept me from playing volleyball. So I did a lot of sitting for PE classes. And the high school kids were probably not any better than what the kids were in grade school. I mean, they just kind of left me off to myself. And I really was kind of like an introvert. You know, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was very self-conscious of that eye. And I would back off from doing many things, but I did go get involved in Future Nurses Club and Future Homemakers Club, and so I did try Girl Scouts, you know, and brownies, so I did try. I left Spencer in 1959 after graduation and headed to San Antonio, Texas, and I was going to go to nursing training there at Baptist Memorial Hospital. The administrator to the nursing school called me into her office, and she said, Rosamond, she said, you will not be able to go on the floor to do any nursing next year until you do something with your eye. Now today that would be called what? Discrimination. But it wasn't back then, and she got by with it. And so I found a doctor there that was right close to the hospital, Dr. Lee, and he said, I can help you. November 21st of 1959, I went into the hospital there at Baptist Memorial, and my eye was taken or removed. And I was able to see, you know, with my right eye real good, you know, but when I had that prosthesis put in my left eye where the socket was, I was a different person. I totally changed. My whole personality changed. I mean, I'm outgoing now, but I wasn't before that. My favorite that I have is a talking computer. It does allow me, Mary Beth, that I maybe can learn how to zoom in to a meeting. And I'm just getting so I'm learning how to do like websites so that I can listen to speakers and learn more things. But that's my way that I communicate with the world, is through that computer. I had 3 heart attacks. So what I have is a lot of heart medicines. And so this is called script talk. Then when they do my scripts in the bottle, they put a little label on the bottom of the bottle. And then you lay this over here, you turn it on, and you put your bottle on this little part here, and it will tell you what the medicine is. It will tell you what the dose is. It'll tell you how many times you need to take it. This is so a blind person won't burn their fingers. If you notice, this one has a little hook on it like this. That is for you to put into your oven on the grate and pull it out. Whoops, right there it is. Right here is the hook. You put that in, and when you pull it out, and then when you push it back in, then you use this on the edge of it. Okay. So it really works pretty neat. These measuring cups, can you tell that they're marked? Now they're not marked by letters. Can you see the edge of it? The edge of it has a notch in it. 1, 2, 3. So that's a third. I just love these things because my other ones I was using, I would write on them with a marker. Well, after you wash them so many times, it's gone. This cane is what you call, it's used for cane travel. And I'm going to just get up just for a few seconds, and I'm going to hit the side of Mary Beth's chair. Now when I hear that hitting, I can tell that I'm not walking on grass. Or I can tell I'm on the sidewalk because it will make the clicking sound. And that is how I learned to travel. That was in 1990. They came up from Des Moines, from the Department for the Blind, and they walked me all over West 4th Street, where I live out there. I walked in the cemetery hours upon hours, learning how to travel with that cane. And so when my question was asked, how do you travel? That's how you travel. I mean, I also travel by plane, in car. So one thing that's funny is my helpers that come to help me now, if they don't know Spencer, I can still tell them how to get there. So we joke, the blind girl is telling us where to go. It is really nice to have someone help me in the grocery store. I always told the children, I said, if you see me struggling to find something in the store, come over and just say, may I help you? And I'll let you help me find it. I brought my accordion today. Now, I started taking accordion lessons when I was about 12 years old from a Mr. Frick who lived over on the east side of town. And he had a deal in the paper, and he said that he would give free accordion lessons for 6 weeks, okay? I was already playing the piano at that time, had been playing the piano since I was 7 or 8. So I took him up, my mom took him up on it, and the accordion wasn't this big. It was only probably about this size. It was just a little 12 bass accordion. So on this side, it only had 12 keys, where this one has 120. Well, I guess God must have been with me because I went through that book in less than 6 weeks. And he felt bad, and he said, no, I'm going to keep my part of the bargain. He said, you will take accordion lessons for 6 weeks. So what he did was taught me how to improvise and change certain keys so that I didn't have to use this. So I didn't have to have a 120 bass accordion. I could still play on that 12 bass. So I credit that with how I can play this thing. But anyway, when I was 12 years old, the pastor at the Assembly of God Church had someone come up from Sioux City, and my folks bought me this accordion. So this accordion is, I'm 79, so it is 60 years old.
Wow.
And still plays very good.
Good.
I've had to have it fixed a few times, but it still works. And I thought that the kids might enjoy listening to that just for something different. So I went from playing a 12 bass accordion, which is 12 buttons down here, to playing with a 120 buttons. And you probably think, how is that possible? Well, you learn how to do it. And there's minor keys over here on this bass clef. There are major keys, and there are 7th keys, like you would have a G7th in your song.